Hey, everybody. Welcome. This is Vija Williams. Good to see you again. I am excited to start bringing you tactics of the shift tactics. Now, there is a side of me that doesn't love that we're calling it that. I believe what we're experiencing is a normalizing of the market, a much needed normalizing of the market, because we haven't even approached a buyer's market yet in any major region in the US. So I'm a little hesitant. I feel like the word shift has gotten loaded. That said, the market is shifting, and we're having to use different scripts and different tactics and different ways to get business than we were 6 months ago. And so I am highly focused on bringing you the best in class on that. One of the most important things right now that all of us need to be working on and changing behaviors on is talking with sellers, right? It's talking to potential sellers, current sellers. It's just a really big topic right now. We have a lot of us are rusty. A lot of us have never even been in a market where we've had to hold on to listings this long, right? So I brought one of the masters at this, Anthony Zapata. Thank you for joining us today, Anthony.
Hey, Bia, thanks for having me.
Well, Anthony, you have a very, very impressive resume. You are not only a top producer, you're one of the team leaders of Ben Kinney Team, Bellingham, which is one of the top teams in the nation, right? You've got 27 agents on your team. You've done about 150 million, or you do that every single year, 150 million in volume every single year. You train all of the agents, right, who come onto the team. On the listing presentation, the listing process, you make sure they stay on top of it. You make sure that their listing and your whole team's listing inventory is staying intact. So of all people I could talk to, it's you, because you're not just doing it for yourself, you're doing it for 27 agents in real time, like you're actively in it, increasing your listing inventory and getting them sold. Yeah. Is that fair?
Yeah, definitely fair. I'm still an active agent, still take listings myself, still out in the field, support the agents, go on listing appointments with them to get them secured, work on anything we got to do to get the listing sold. So yeah, very active on training with the listing presentation, because when I first started, Ben would always ask me via, hey, do you know the listing presentation? Do you have it memorized? You have it memorized, right? Because he knew how important it would be to make sure we're always working with sellers.
Well, yeah. List to last, right? List to last. It is interesting because, right now we want to be careful that we're working with sellers who are selling and we're not just collecting listings as a hobby. Back, in the past market we're coming out of right now, just getting a listing, your job was done. Pretty much if you got the listing, it was probably going to sell. Right now, there's two skill sets. There's getting the listing and keeping the client, well, three, and getting it sold. So, three things. Anthony, we wanted to kind of focus on three scripts today and three methods, right, to increasing our listing business. Do you want to kind of just launch in and start talking about what your philosophy is on that and what's working and all of that?
Yeah, definitely. I've been practicing scripts since I've been with Ben for, over 11 and a half, almost 12 years. So to me, I feel a little uncomfortable if we're not on point with our scripts every single time. And it's important that we get comfortable with scripting, especially in a changing market. A lot of people will not know what to say or what to do or how to handle objections or price adjustments or whatever it is that's coming up. So I wanted to talk a little bit first about scripting, because I hear from agents all the time that scripting is uncomfortable and it doesn't sound natural. But I just think back to when you walk into the department store. Via, do you like to buy shoes?
Do I like to shop for them or do I like to buy them?
Do you like to shop for shoes?
I don't really like to shop for anything, so no. But I do like shoes.
We'll make up a scenario then, because I still go to the store sometimes. And when I go to the store and say I'm going to buy myself a pair of shoes, I'm going to start looking at some stuff that's on the rack. And as soon as I walk up to the rack, a sales associate's going to come over to me and ask how they can help me. And what's my response to that? Probably,
no, I'm good.
Just looking.
Just looking.
Even though I came in there specifically to buy a pair.
It's crazy. It's like we're programmed to say no on that. I know.
And so a lot of people are like, well, I'm not a scripted person, but turns out we're all scripted. Just depends on where we learned our scripts from. If it was from friends, family, relatives, whatever it may be. And so we just got to learn these scripts in our business so that we have a response for when people have an answer. So scripts and dialogue, for me, you have to consistently say the right thing. And if you do that, you'll get consistent results. But a lot of us don't ever say the same thing again and again and again, because we might get a little bit bored with it. So we're going to have to get a little uncomfortable and get used to the boredom by learning 1 or 2 scripts, or today we're going to be learning 3, and using them again and again and again in our current market. And whenever the market changes again, whether it's a few months or a year, then learning the new scripts and getting used to them again, and then start using them on a regular basis. Now, we have to remember their objections never change, only people saying them. So we need to make sure that we're going to perfect our responses to each one of those. And I've done a ton of scripting with agents, and they'll be like, wow, how do you know what to say? And I said, I've never changed my scripts. They're all the same. I just use them accordingly based off of the market. So that's actually going to bring us into one of our first scripts, Vija.
I'll share it with us, but just before we do, I want to just kind of make a comment about that, because I think that scripts, the word script is kind of a loaded word. People hear script and they immediately, a lot of people go to like robocaller telemarketer types. And they think, I don't want to be a script person. I don't want to be like, hi, Anthony, my name's Vija. Did you know your home came off the market? And Anthony, as I read, like, no one wants to be that person. So I think it's loaded, but I think what you were saying was really smart, which is we're actually talking in scripts and saying the same thing over and over again. But because we don't think of them as scripts, they don't have that loaded definition in our head. And we just continue to say them over and over again, good or bad, right? What you're saying is, okay, you're going to say things over and over again. You might as well get purposeful about it and, practice it and sound good. And so I think a lot of us have to just get over that word script. And, you can name it whatever you want in your head, but you're saying it, you have to have scripts. You have to have responses that are so ingrained that you could truly listen to the person. Because if you don't, what happens is you're so worried about what you're going to say next, you're not really listening to the other person. And you're not really observing their body language.
That comes up when practicing with agents, whether they're new or experienced, they're always looking for the next thing to say. Like, what do I say next? What do I say next? But I tell them the same thing, Vija. The first thing we have to do when it comes to any script is we have to memorize it. That's why we practice every day in Bellingham from 8:30 to 9, memorizing scripts again and again and again. Ones that we've been practicing for over a decade, or probably 20 years since Ben started the team. And then after we have them memorized, we can internalize these scripts. And when they're memorized and internalized, we can actively listen to have responses according to what the potential client or actual client may say. And then once you've built that skill set, you can do the third thing, which is what all of us want to do, but we do it a little too early on. You can personalize the script. And that's where you get more comfortable and people are saying the same thing. They just put their own little twist on it.
Yeah, exactly. 100%. Well, so with that said, I'll pull the script up now, but I just kind of felt like, we needed to kind of preface this by the fact that, like, you got to own the fact that we all need scripts, and you can call it whatever you want, but we need them, right? Can you see that okay?
Yeah, I can see that just fine.
All right. So what are we looking at here?
Well, getting into a changing market, you mentioned earlier, there's some agents out there that might not know what to do when the market changes and houses were selling in the first day or hours, or there was, review dates of 7, 10 days out and they're all sold. And it was really easy for listing agents. Now there's listings that aren't selling. Some of the agents know how to handle that by communicating with the seller properly and getting price reductions. I heard an agent at an event we were at last night, and she said, I heard her say this like to the whole room almost, like it just stood out to me. And she's like, I have 9 listings and I don't know what to do with them. 9 listings. I don't know how many thousands of dollars of commission checks are sitting there that she's leaving on the table because that person doesn't know what to do with them. So because of that, we're going to start to see more canceled and expired listings. Communication is not going to be very good with the seller. The agent's not going to be brave enough to bring up price adjustments because they don't know how to portray price adjustments. Listings are going to get taken at the wrong price because before you could just take anything and it would sell. And now you have to be careful and smart on how you take it and have a plan. So because of that, we're going to have these opportunities popping up where a seller is going to raise their hand and say, hey, I want to sell. I just don't know what to do. Somebody please call me. And that's where our opportunity is going to come up, and we can get easy listings in the sense that we don't have to go and call people for 6 or 12 months to earn their business.
Okay. Are you going to walk through?
Oh, yeah. So, hey, Vija, this is Anthony. I'm calling because your home showed up as expired off the market, which surprised me. And I was wondering if it had sold or if it was still available, because this home looks absolutely gorgeous online.
Oh, can you hear me okay?
Oh, sorry. It paused there. Did you respond?
Yeah. Can you hear me okay? Sorry. I don't know what happened. Is that what sugar lump means? A little compliment on the house?
Yeah. Sugar lump. Okay. That would be complimenting because it causes the barrier to get taken down, right? If you saw somebody you never met on the street and you're like, oh, I love your hair. Oh, well, thank you. I appreciate that. And now you can have a more open conversation.
That's cool. My house didn't sell. It's still available.
Okay. So it sounds like your house didn't sell and it's still available. Do you have any idea why your place hasn't sold yet?
No. We got showings and I never heard why.
Okay. So it sounds like you were getting some showings and you had some interest in the property, but your previous broker never mentioned to you on what was stopping you from getting offers on the table?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah.
And I'm curious, Vija, did that other broker ever have any additional feedback regarding your listing when it was active on the market?
Not really, no.
Okay. Well, I'm sorry to hear that the communication was lacking and you're not quite for sure what was stopping your house from selling. It's pretty common in our market, so I don't want you to be worried and think you have a bad listing or anything like that. So just out of curiosity, are you still wanting to get it sold, or did you have other plans with it?
Yeah, we'd like it sold, but I don't want to lose money on it. And, we want to get a certain amount of money out of it. So we do want it sold. I'm just not sure what to do. Obviously, the market's changing. So I don't know.
Well, I was curious, Vija. It sounds like you have a plan of wanting to get it sold. There's a little bit of unknowns in there that could be causing some concern. But what was the reason that was causing you to make a move in the first place?
Yeah, we purchased another home and have moved in, and we could rent this one out, but we would much rather sell it. So that we need to do something with it.
Okay, and you said you were going to be making a move, or did you already have somewhere that you're at?
We've already moved.
Oh my gosh. So
So
now
we
you're
need to
holding on
either
to
rent
this
this
home.
or sell it. Yeah. Yeah.
Do you have a mortgage that you're paying on that property
Yeah.
too?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
So it sounds like time is of the essence for you on getting an offer on the property and not have the nuisance of a second mortgage on top of your current mortgage. Is that right?
Well, like that is correct unless we rent it out. And so I think I think where we are, and we were going to regroup on it this weekend, but as we're going to list it for rent and for sale.
Mhm.
And, if we can get a really high rent, then that'll answer that. And if we can sell it, that'll answer that.
Yeah, that makes sense. Well, I love when people can hold their real estate and build wealth through real estate. And what I'd love to do, Via, is schedule a time that we can meet this week or weekend and go over the 3 to 4 options you have in today's market and see which one might be the best moving forward. Would you have any time at all tonight, or is this weekend better for you?
Well, besides renting it or selling it, what would be my other option to make it 3 or 4?
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up because a lot of people aren't aware of all the options, and I'm not for sure. Did your previous broker go over the different options sellers have in today's market?
I don't think so. No.
Okay. Well, again, I'd love to just sit down with you, 15 or 20 minutes of your time. We can go over if you should be putting the property back on the market, if you should be renting the property out and taking potential income or break even on that mortgage. We'll also go over the options that you mentioned. Do you rent it and try to sell it at the same time? What the benefits or negatives could be of that? And then the fourth option would actually be something a lot of agents don't talk about, but it'd be going through our active buyer database that we have and seeing if we could find you a buyer and do a sale off market. That way you don't have to stress with trying to put it back on. But of course, I'd need to see the home in person for me to know if that was a possibility.
Why wouldn't those buyers have seen it when it was listed?
That's a good question, Via. And there's a few different reasons that sometimes stop a buyer from seeing a home when it was actively listed on the market. And there's 3 different things that our team does when selling a property to make sure to get it out there to all the buyers. And I'd love to cover those things with you when we meet. Is there any time this evening or would this weekend be better for you?
Well, I think probably this weekend. We need to talk about things and we just don't know what we're doing yet.
Yeah, definitely. Well, we're already in the middle of the week. So would it be better for you guys to meet on Saturday or are Sundays more convenient?
I think Saturday would work okay.
Okay. Do you prefer mornings or afternoons?
Morning would be great.
All right. And I'd have time as early as 9 a.m. or we could do something a little bit later morning at 10:15.
9 a.m. would be great.
Perfect. Well, I'll plan on seeing you at 9 a.m. And I just had a couple more questions before we meet. So normally I'd go into our seller's information sheet.
Yep. So you set the appointment, then you backtrack and do the pre-qual.
Yes.
Perfect.
Yep. The goal, I talk about it all the time with our agents and coaching clients of ours. Most people aren't aware that it takes anywhere from 8 to 12 closes to schedule an appointment with a potential seller lead. And luckily, we made this a very short version of the script because a lot of times we'll be on the phone for 15, 20 minutes and the whole time we'll be closing. And it takes that 8th or 9th close before we finally get a time locked down to meet with them. So I want to make sure that I'm not going down that sheet and then you just tell me, well, call me back later. We'll go over it. And then I just wasted all my time. So, well,
you're the master. You're the one that taught me that's why we need to meet. No matter what anybody says, and I have to say I've probably mastered it at this point because I heard it from you so many years ago, but no matter what anybody says, if you freeze up, if you don't know what to say, if you don't know the objection handle, all you have to say is, yeah, well, that's why we need to meet. Why don't we talk about that Saturday, and you go into the close. And so it happens really naturally. It is not unnatural. I do it all the time. I do it at open houses. I go, yeah. It's a longer conversation than we probably have time for right now. I can come over right now. but be better. I can show you things if we meet. I can see the house. I can talk more intelligently about it that way. You can embellish some of these closes, but the basic close, Anthony, correct me if I'm wrong, is basically, well, that's why we should meet.
Yeah, exactly. They're going to have an objection, and our job is not to handle objections. Our job is to get face to face, because when I first started out, I was really good at handling objections. And then at the end of it, I told all the information to the seller, just like you asked, like, what are the 4 or 5 things? You're trying to gather information so you can make an educated decision. And there's no reason for me to tell you everything. Otherwise, what is my value?
Yeah, for sure. All right. Well, let's go into the 3 pricing strategies that you were talking about earlier.
Yeah. So I know a lot of us, when going and meeting with a seller in today's market, might, and I just want to backtrack a tiny bit, they might scare a seller. And that's the one thing we have to be careful is we don't want to scare a seller off. And I've seen agents do that already when I've gone on some listing appointments that were competing against other agents. And the agents are telling these sellers, well, the market's not as strong and the prices are dropped and it's long days on market. Well, who would want to list with somebody that sounds so negative, right? So we got to be excited going in there. We have to let them know that we're in a great market right now. The sellers are still getting top dollars for their properties as long as they're pricing them correctly. And if we can go in there and do that, even if we have to take a listing, it's a little bit higher, as long as we have a strategy to get it down, to get an offer on it, and we have a long written contract, they will sell. And so that's the one thing I want to make sure people aren't just pushing off listings because they think the seller wants too much money. So there's 3 different ways that I always talk to sellers when pricing a home. And the first strategy is some homeowners, they want to price their property as close as possible to what the data suggests. So that would be our 5-5-5 pricing strategy, looking at 5 active properties, which is easy to find now, 5 pending properties, and of course, 5 sold properties. And as Chris Suarez always says, data eliminates the drama. So that would be the first pricing strategy. And we'd always have a range in there with a low range and a high range. So I'll just use $800,000 as like a standard price point. And if we know that the sold properties are averaging around 800,000, we would give them a range of a low range of 775 up to 800,000 for them to make a decision on where they want to be at. Remember, this is an option. We facilitate the listing. The seller is in charge of making the decisions. We just have to provide them with the information.
Yeah.
Now, the second strategy is going to be the less is more pricing strategy. And we saw a lot of that in this previous market where people were underpricing homes and getting it bid way up above asking. And so we want to bring this up as an option because at the end of the day, it really depends on their timelines and their motivation and their need to move. So I would say, Via, the second option would be for us to price the home under the market value, which would allow buyers to have more activity as far as showings, open houses, website visits, sending it and favoriting it on websites to their friends and family. And what this would do would allow you to either drive the price up or get an offer in a shorter period of time so you're not sitting on the market too long. And then our last strategy is going to be one that maybe scares some people to even bring up. But I love to bring it up because at the end of the day, we're going to go over what the positives are, what the negatives are of each strategy, and which is going to work the best for them. So the third strategy is what we call retail pricing. And retail pricing would be putting a home up on the market a little bit above what the comparable sales, or what we call in our industry, the market value of the home is. Now, the negatives regarding retail pricing is longer days on market, potential for multiple price adjustments, potentially causing a listing to get a little stale, which could be leaving you money on the table. And then after we go over all three of these strategies, Vija, I just ask them, now, based off of your needs, what strategy do you think would be the best for you?
What do most people say?
Well, most people come
Strategy one.
Most people, come to the realization, well, we probably shouldn't overprice it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, yeah. And so if we're going to go back to strategy one, we put you in a price range between $775,000 and $800,000. What was a number you were thinking of as far as selling your property? And go ahead.
850.
850. Okay. Well, that sounds great. So let's just go back and look at the properties that we have that have recently sold. And then I'll pull up all these properties that have sold again, and we'll read through everything. I love reading through the agent remarks, and I love emphasizing things that are similar to your property. So I'd bring up, well, this one's a 3-bed, 2-bathroom, updated kitchen with a view, large deck off the master. And I start emphasizing these things. Now, this one was on the market for 10 days. And it sold at 98% of list price. Looks like it was a cash buyer. It was a quick closing. Now let's bring up the next property. And then I'll use all those. Now, out of all of these 5 properties, Vija, which one do you think was the most realistic or the closest to yours?
Whatever works for the role play.
Well, most of the time, somebody is going to agree with one of these listings, or 2 of these listings, or 4 of these listings. I'm like, I think you're right. I think all 4 of these listings are very similar to yours. Now let's look at the average price. So based off of that data, do you think it would be better for your needs, since you need to get to Austin, Texas in the next 2 months, to price it at $850? Or do you still want to try with strategy number 1 and pricing it with what the data suggests?
What the data suggests, I think. Yeah.
Okay, great. So we'll go ahead and write a price here on the listing paperwork. Did you want to start out at 800, or would you like to do something more aggressive, closer to 775?
Maybe in the middle, like 785.
785. Okay, great. Well, let's go ahead and we'll start out a 785 pricing strategy, and then we'll get on to the paperwork.
Okay, so this is interesting because I love that. I do something similar. What I say is we have 3 options for pricing, which is funny. I've never heard this before, but that's what I say: low, mid, and high. Now, right on the midline is where it's the closest that I see the invisible line of fair market value, right? It's an invisible line because we operate in ranges, Mr. and Mrs. Seller. We don't operate in absolutes as real estate agents. We work in ranges, but midline would be the closest to where I think we see the sales price, right? And I go through, it's almost identical, the pros and cons of each of them. But what I also do is when we decide on the strategy, and they almost all say midline because I really lead them down that path. I really believe in a midline. What I share with my sellers are, I do not believe in underpricing homes. Even in the hottest market, I did not do that. You should never list a home or real estate for a price lower than you're willing to take. So you have to ask yourself, if we decide on 800, are you happy with that sale? Would you take a good offer at 800? And if they say yes, I say great. And that's right on the midline where I see it. Does that sound like the right price? But the second thing I do that's interesting is most of my clients, we do a lot of home prep for. And so their listing date's not for 2 to anywhere from 2 to 8 weeks after we meet, kind of depends. So what I'll say is right now, we think that's the price. However, we are going to revisit 24 to 48 hours before we list. And we are going to check that price. It is a moving target. And right now that moving target is likely down. So this is not a fixed price. This is today's price. None of us can predict the future. These comps that we were looking at, some of the pendings will close, some of the actives will go pending, and we'll track them very closely. But we just have to be aware of the fact that your neighbor could list their house at 2 million tomorrow, and the other neighbor could list their house at 600, right? And we just can't predict the future, and so we don't know. So while we think this is the price today, so I do not fill in price usually in listing paperwork, or I'll fill it in and say that we're going to potentially change it later. What are your thoughts on that?
Oh, I think that's a very smart strategy. I've fallen into that problem before, and it really comes back to bite you. So, making sure that we're really doing a good job of setting expectations and then using the data again to eliminate any potential problems that they might have. And I almost always write the price in only because I've sometimes had issues in the past with a seller signing something that's blank.
Yeah.
So a lot of times I will write price in, but no issues with adjusting the price accordingly. And I think it's very smart to have a face-to-face meeting with them before you actually put the home back up on, or actually put the home on the market, to make sure you're in the right pricing range.
The other thing that I do recommend, and this is, after the listing paperwork is signed, I share with them that I will be following up this meeting with a low, mid, and high net proceeds to seller. I've done this 20 years, and I've had too many experiences where what they think they're going to net is not what they net. They just don't take into account. In our state, in Washington state, we have excise tax, which has gone up considerably for most of my clients. Excise tax in Washington state now over a certain price point is like 3%. So it's significant, right? It's not always 3, it's a rolling thing. And then there's commission, and then they don't really know about title, escrow, different fees. And so I like to give a low, mid, and high. And then when we're reviewing an offer that's lower than ask price, I will often include a net sheet. I typically don't even fill in what they owe, because they're usually inaccurate. Mm-hmm. So I just say, well, subtract what you owe on that, So I just wanted to kind of plant that seed. I've just run into so many issues with sellers who think they're going to get $800,000 if they sell their house for $800,000. And I know that sounds obvious to us. I don't know if you've run into that before, but not everybody gets it.
Yeah, I always bring a computer or a iPad with me, and that's after we've gone over a price. Then we'll talk about the cost of selling after all.
Yeah, like it's ideal once everything's signed. It's
exactly,
kind of better.
Everything's completed, and then I always go over it with them, and we'll get the numbers finalized, and I'll shoot them an email over. But that is definitely a key factor.
All right, so we're going to move into with that. So we're going to move into price reduction script. Is that what's next?
Yeah. So our third script is going to be our price reduction script. And I've been using this. I think Ben taught me this one. Who knows? Maybe that's where, I think you said you used something similar.
I made it up on a napkin for myself, and it's almost identical to this one, funny enough.
That is
Which awesome. Means it's just probably fact,
Yeah. Well, the cool thing about this is you can use it in so many different ways. So we'll pretend first that you were wanting to list at $850. We couldn't get you to budge from $850. We know it's not worth $850, and the data shows it, but that's what you want to list at. And again, we don't want to walk away from a listing, but we can put together a strategy. So my suggestion would be to bring this to the listing appointment, because I want to set these expectations up front. That's our job as real estate agents. So I would say, well, Vija, since we're going to be starting out at $850, I wanted you to be aware of how we make pricing adjustments based off of activity. And if we're getting offers right away, then we know we're spot on price, because we had somebody that loved the house, loved the price, and they're willing to make an offer. But if we're not getting offers and we're only getting a few showings and there are not a ton of showings, and we only have so many people coming to our website, we know, according to the National Association of Realtors, we could be off on value by as much as 4 to 6%. Now, if we have drive-ups only, little to no showings, no one's calling me off the sign, our website activity is dropped, then we know that we could be off by as much as 6 to 12%. And if we put it on the market and it's just dead and nobody's coming in the house, realtors aren't calling me, nobody's inquiring, and I don't even get a peep on the website, then we know it could be 12+% off on value. So if we don't have any interest or offers in the first 10 days, I usually like to have 10 or 15 days is kind of my time frame, then we would need to make a price adjustment. And I'd like to go ahead and get a plan together now so that we're not surprised later. So if that were to happen, would you want to start on the low end of a 4% price adjustment, or would you want to be a little bit more aggressive at 6% in order to get an offer quicker so our listing doesn't look stale on the market?
So let's see here. So 850, what's 5%, 8540? Yeah, I mean, you're right. I think we're prepared to go down to 800. So I think that's between 4 and 6%, somewhere around there. If we're at 850, I do agree that there's probably not much point lowering price unless we do that. But I would really like to wait like 3 weeks.
3 weeks? Okay. Well, here's what I'm going to do is we're going to have a plan on communicating with you through our Brivity platform, which I'll explain with you later. And also I'm going to be communicating with you twice a week based off our activity. And then even if you're, having a plan to do it in 3 weeks, we can go ahead and make that change whenever you're ready. So if it's really stale and we need to get things moving, we can always do that in the first 5, 7 days or 14 days. Don't feel like we have to wait that 3 weeks. Now, the cool thing too, Vija, and I'm not for sure if anybody's ever told you this or not, but if we were to make a 5% or greater price adjustment, we can actually cancel the listing and relist it as a new listing. And so it would actually look brand new to buyers out there in the market that didn't realize this home was on the MLS or on different websites because it was above their price range. And it'll show up as a new listing instead of a price reduced. And so I think that's a smart idea with going about a 5 to 6% adjustment. And we can talk about that if we need to.
That's awesome. Okay. Yeah. Hopefully we sell it. Hopefully it's, hopefully someone makes an offer. So that would be great.
Well, that's my goal. The more money you get, the more money everybody gets, and everyone's going to be really, really happy. So we can also use this during the third, whatever week it is, you're going to be talking price adjustments. The biggest thing that I hear from agents all the time is they're nervous to bring this whole thing up of reducing the price. They're scared, like, I don't know if I want to bring up a price adjustment. I don't want to potentially lose it. So that's why I like to have this in our listing packet when we're signing paperwork. Even if they priced it well, I would still bring it up. I just wanted to let you know about our pricing strategy and how that works. And then after 5 days, 7 days, 14 days, every time I'm communicating with them, I don't say we have to reduce the price, but I start bringing up what our options are. So by the time it gets to day 14 or 21 or 30, whatever day that is for you, they're all warmed up and it's an easy conversation on reducing the price.
Yeah, I think that's a really good conversation point to have right now, because a lot of agents, started meeting with their clients, even if it was a month or two ago, the market's different. So they're scared. And so because they were definitive, maybe I'm just making this up, but maybe they were definitive a month or two ago that this is worth $850. And they were advocating right alongside that client with the house. And they get scared because they're going to, I was wrong. I gave them wrong advice. I'm scared to tell them that it's actually 800 now because I got their hopes up and they're going to fire me, right? So I think that moving forward, be excellent at managing communication. And if you're kind of caught in this right now, which a lot of us are right now, if you're caught in it, there's a couple of great scripts, I think, that you can say. I did an office meeting today and got some great scripts from some people. One of them was, when we were meeting, were we in a recession? When we were meeting, do you remember what the market was like then, right? Things have changed since then. I gave you the best information I had at the time, and it was accurate for the time. Things have changed now, and this is what we're seeing. So, I'm your partner. I support this price. This is the price we went for. I also want to have a conversation with you. Are you going to be okay with that 5% price reduction we talked about? I want to do a gut check on that because I'm seeing price closer to that.
Yeah, that's a great.
You just have to be honest with them, about it. I mean, if you're moving forward as of today, moving on, that's easier.
Yeah, I think that's a great script, and sellers are going to be grateful for your honesty. At the end of the day, if you go to the doctor and the doctor doesn't tell you what's wrong, you're probably not going to be very happy with somebody that you hired with something that's very critical, which is your health. And this is one of the next biggest things in people's life is the biggest asset they own is their house. So they expect that. And at the end of the day, as long as we're going to help them with selling and we provide all the information and we communicate appropriately, then it'll go smooth. The one thing I would be worried about is if we're not communicating enough. So I know a lot of us in the past maybe don't remember 2019, but our market is very similar to 2019. Number of inventory, interest rates are a tad bit higher, but a lot of similarities. So when 2019 was around, I was contacting the sellers twice a week because I did not want a seller contacting me asking something. Hey, are you doing open houses this weekend? Hey, what was the activity from the showing? Hey, what was the activity from the open house? Hey, I didn't see this. So we need to make sure right now more than ever that we're over communicating. And that's maybe at the most a 5-minute conversation. It does not take any of your time. So please block it out on your calendars and have that plan for any listings that you have.
Yeah, for sure. The one thing I would add to your the price reduction wheel that we talked about, because I literally draw that. I don't have a pretty graphic. I draw it out for my clients. The one thing I would say, and this will resonate with some people and not others, just like all scripts do. I actually supplement that with a ratio script that I use. And what I say is, Anthony, there's a couple different ways I know what concentric ring we're in on this target, and I'm pointing to the target. One of them is ratios. So when I'm in Seattle, I expect approximately, it's not quite science, but about a 20-to-1 ratio. So in the first 10-ish days, so this is the first 2 weekends on the market, and we list all of our properties on Thursdays for the most part. So, by that following Monday, if I've had 20 groups through the house, and that includes open houses, and that's not people, that's groups, by the way, it's showings and open houses combined. If I've had about 20 groups, I expect an offer. And if I haven't had an offer, we're in that inner concentric ring. If we've had that much activity on the listing, we probably just need to nudge that puppy down. It probably means that we just need to nudge it down enough. It's just a price sensitive market where we are. Probably need to nudge it down enough. So just kind of be prepared for that conversation. Now, if we haven't even gotten 20 groups through in the first 10 days, that probably tells me we're like in the second ring. If we've gotten hardly anything, we're probably in the third ring. If we're on the east side, so Bellevue, Kirkland, Sammamish, for all of you local people, the ratio is about 10-to-1. It's a little bit of a less dense environment there. If I'm in some outerlying areas, it can be 3, 4, 5-to-1. If we don't have an offer by then, and I just kind of loosely know my ratios doing this a lot of years. So if I'm in a big open house weekend, and I'm in Seattle, and we did 3 open houses that weekend, and we had maybe 40 groups through total, and another, 5 or 7 showings. We're going to get 1 or 2 offers, maybe 3 offers that as a result of that weekend's activity. I can pretty much know that, right? So that has just come with experience. And I do encourage you, it's very easy to work that out. You just take the number, you take your open house traffic, and you just take your showings, and you just start saying, how many offers am I getting? That's your ratio. And it's different in every market area. So I tend to layer that into that conversation. I thought I would add it for our more analytical folks in the room. I love it. Everyone's a little different. That will not work for some people. Some people will love it, like every script. All right. So I want you to tell everybody what you're working on, and because everyone here can join this class. Is that correct?
Yeah. So next week on August 3rd, we are going to be starting a 16-week fast forward course, and it's going to be specifically on listings. And we're going to be talking about everything. So I know some people in this group, or they're watching this, they might have a listing presentation. Some people might not have anything. So we're going to talk about basic stuff, like how to create a listing presentation, how to go on a listing appointment, how to follow up with seller leads, how to get listings from for sale by owners, canceled expires, your sphere, past clients, price adjustments. I mean, we're going to be having everything regarding listings, and we're going to get down into all the details. We have a ton of material to provide to anybody that joins. Debbie DeGroat and I worked on this for probably over 3 or 4 month period of time. And so there's a lot of good information, not only from myself, but stuff that Debbie and Ben have taught me over the years. And I know it will help people in getting more listings and getting them closed, not just taking listings. So would love for anybody that's looking to increase their listing skill set, whether you're a new agent or you've been in the business for 20 years, there's a lot to gain from this.
I love that. That's awesome. Cool. Well, thank you so much for your time today. We appreciate you. You're just the script master. Like I said, you're the one that taught me that's why we should meet. That's why we should meet. Well, that's why we should meet. So thank you very much. And I hope people sign up for this course. I think everybody needs it right now, right? I think as everything's changing, this is the one thing they need. So have a great week, everybody. We appreciate you, Anthony.
Thanks, Vija.